Good afternoon and welcome to this month's show. I'm Luke McCormick. During today's show, we will discuss how the explosion of big data is being addressed in government programs. With me on today's show are Michael Conlin, Chief Business Analytics Officer, Department of Defense; Tom Cicela, Chief Data Officer, Department of Navy; Ron Thompson, Chief Data Officer at NASA; Nick Saki, Principal Systems Engineer, North American Federal Pure Storage; Henry Sowell, Chief Information Officer at Cloudera Government Solutions; and John Harmon, Vice President of Worldwide Sales, BMC Software. We're talking about big data. It's a big subject. A lot of great capabilities out there in storage, compute, analyze, and visualize. And certainly there's a lot of federal agencies, including these three, that are doing all this and more. Michael, let's start with you. Tell us about the state of the state. I think you got one of the coolest titles in the federal government, Chief Business Analytics Officer. Tell us about that and tell us what you're doing over there at DoD these days.
Well, so the title is actually part of the big news. After I spent 2 years as the first Chief Data Officer for the Department of Defense, and our challenge was fundamentally grappling with over 10,000 different operational IT systems, every one of which was generating data in a completely different way. And so we had to bring together all of the data from all of those authoritative sources, standardize it, and make it ready for executives to make decisions on. When we spent 2 years doing that, we got our data to a high degree of quality and availability. And so now the attention is turned to analyzing that data to generate insights to improve the department's performance. So it's all about business analytics and insights. And the data is running along smoothly now at high quality. But the key thing is we're delivering insights for the secretary, the deputy secretary, the chief management officer, and all the other principal staff advisors to the secretary. We're even building out the department's first balanced scorecard. As you'll remember, federal agencies are supposed to have balanced scorecards and have been for over a decade. Well, we have now turned our attention to turning on a real balanced scorecard for the department that's enabling the secretary and the deputy to make decisions on a department-wide basis, whereas we always were making siloed decisions about siloed parts of the department. Now we can tune the entire ecosystem of the department for improved affordability and performance. And that's good for the taxpayer, that's good for the warfighter. So really good news. The work has supported the efforts for the defense-wide review, the reform, and the other priorities in the National Defense Strategy. And I take a lot of satisfaction in being a big part of that story. So now Chief Business Analytics Officer, and lots more to do because there are plenty of opportunities for improvement ahead of us, Luke.
A lot of data to analyze. And I love to see the fact that, DOD has sort of, brought it to the next level of extraction and really just sort of using all this information now to make these decisions via scorecards and the like, which is super impressive. Tom, how about over at the Navy? We had a subject a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month ago, on 5G, and it was just amazing some of the things they were doing as far as just collecting data in regards to across the various entities. Tell us what's happening over at the Navy.
Yeah, so similar to where Michael kind of jumped in there. So we've spent probably the last year, and I am the first Chief Data Officer for the whole department. So spent a year trying to get the program off the ground. I think we made a lot of great progress with Michael's help, and now with Dave Spurk, who's the DoD CDO as well. So we've really been focusing on some of what I'll call the fundamentals for the department so far, which is really getting our governance in line, getting our policies kind of analyzed. I can't say they've all been fixed yet. And then getting our enterprise data environment off the ground and start focusing on some of the quality, the accessibility, and the availability of the data. So that's our new data platform, Jupiter, which I'll talk about probably later, is really the center of our focal point for getting our data analytics in order. And then what happens is Jupiter will feed Advana, which is the system that Michael was kind of talking about just a minute ago. So that's really where we've been focused in large part, working with the U.S. Navy and the U.S. Marine Corps to kind of get them organized relative to the department writ large, and then getting us plugged into the broader DoD initiatives, not only with the DoD CDO, but there's some initiatives going on in joint staff to get better interoperability across the warfighting systems, which is going to be paramount to any sort of peer adversary conflict we might end up in the future. So it's been a lot of work, but we're on our path, and I think we have some exciting times ahead of us.
Yeah, I love the framework, the tracks that are being laid down, the sort of ecosystem that's being formulated across the entire DoD entity. It's super exciting to hear that.
Yeah.
Talk about exciting. Ron, what a great time to be at NASA. Tell us what's happening over there in regards to all this fantastic data that's being collected at NASA.
Absolutely, Luke. Well, good afternoon. Thanks for having me today. You know, like we just heard from Michael and Tom, I think a lot of us are in the same position. You know, I am the NASA's first Chief Data Officer. Been in this role for just north of a year now, and it is exciting times. NASA is a very large agency and a very federated agency, so we have huge data sets in the science community, human exploration, and then in our flight area too, in our aeronautics area. So we really have three really distinct domains where data is purpose-built. So our play is really, you know, after we get through, like many federal agencies, is IDing what we have and going through the inventory and tagging, and make it searchable. So these are all the FAIR principles that all of us chief data officers are espousing to and working quite nicely together. And I want to get into this as we go in through this afternoon's talk about the interagency collaboration that's happening. But, you know, for NASA, our play right now is identifying what we have, putting it in inventory, and working on standards and interoperability. You know, we are not sure what questions we can ask if we put disparate data sets together. So it's an exciting time. I mean, just look at space exploration, planetary exploration. There are a lot of questions that folks haven't even thought of yet. And by making these data available and mashing them up together, we're going to be able to answer some very interesting questions in the future. So we're really excited about it and really eager to work as a community across the federal space together.
I really love to hear this, you know, that we're sort of out of the pliers and wires and just simply tagging of this data and really looking at sort of this higher order, and certainly do appreciate the effort that NASA has and all the agencies to expose whatever data they can to sort of the general public and allow the ecosystem to use that in ways that none of us even thought about. Nick, once we collect this, we certainly have to store it. We have to store it efficiently. We have to be able to retrieve it, et cetera. And pure storage is right in the middle of that. Tell us, you know, tell us about the state of the state, about what you're seeing from a pure storage perspective.
What we're seeing is a very conscious recognition across government, across agencies, across all of our customer base, that it's really about the agility and availability of the data service itself for driving the applications, for driving the discovery mechanisms, and being able to obtain those insights without, as you said, having to worry about turning the wrenches on the infrastructure to make it work. Or, as I've said in the past, beating your infrastructure into submission so that you can actually get work done. So
I haven't heard it described that way.
So we really think of where we are today as trying to deliver to customers this modern data experience where the focus is on the application development, discovery, and leveraging the data, as opposed to trying to make the data service infrastructure, the compute infrastructure at large work. And that's manifested itself in a number of different ways. Obviously, customers are exploring cloud-based capabilities because of the push button deployment and simplicity, but they're also discovering that there's ways to deliver that same kind of capability, that seamless operations capability within their own infrastructure on premises. So this gives them tremendous flexibility in where they make the data available, how they use it, where they deploy it, how they back it up, how they recover it, especially. And we're really focused, you know, at the wholesale level of data. How do we make it available and useful for our customers? And that's proven to be tremendously flexible and powerful for a number of different agencies, particularly in this era.
Right. And obviously the demand signal is there to develop this type of technology. The volumes and volumes, dump truck loads of data that's being collected and being able to have it accessible. So again, you know, almost don't have to think about that, and you can just kind of take it to the next level. Henry,
Exactly.
tell us about what's happening at Cloudera. You're sort of right smack in the middle of this data, you know, explosion revolution. Tell us what are you seeing out there?
Absolutely. Well, good afternoon. Thanks for having me on. It's great to be here again with such a good group of panelists.
Pleasure to have you.
And so we're working with many organizations across the public sector, everything from working on the 2020 census to partnering with NASA. And as a combat veteran, it's actually really exciting for me, some of the work Cloudera is doing with a number of Department of Defense organizations to find new opportunities and efficiencies around digital transformation. And that's been a big focus, whether it's using data-driven logistics to help put fuel and supplies where they're needed, or using machine learning for predictive maintenance to keep vehicles rolling and aircraft in the air. We're tackling all these areas. And on the machine learning and analytics front, we're actively supporting the DoD with full data lifecycle needs. And I think what that means is everything from the collection, storage, and analysis of data to using machine learning to help defeat adversaries and protect the warfighter, which is near and dear to my heart.
Really that sort of triple play of activity there to allow these folks to, again, use this data to make these very important decisions. John, how about over at BMC Software? Why don't you give us a little bit of a top line as to how they fit into this picture? BMC's been around with us in the community for a long time, do a lot of different things. Where do you all fit in regards to this, you know, big data revolution?
Yeah, thank you very much. So look, as you said, BMC's been around for a long time, and I've been around for a big part of that long time as well with BMC. But for us specifically in our portfolio, we think about things like automation and orchestration. And the role of automation and orchestration, and subsequently the technology that is supporting things like that, like BMC's Control-M, has really, really evolved and changed quite a bit over the years, from things like traditional batch or job scheduling, where we're managing, you know, business processes and the like, to starting to play a more integral part in data pipeline orchestration. So right now we're focusing on things like simplifying the complexity that most of our customers are facing, while also trying to deliver against a lot of these new initiatives that we're hearing about today. And they're trying to do that at great speed. They're trying to do that at great scale and with industrial grade results. So we're helping automate every step of that big data project, whether it's ingesting the data from hundreds of applications, or if it's developing workflows to process the data, then deliver the results back to the users and the other systems so that they can analyze that. We're trying to help agencies develop those critical integrations that we think are necessary between those big data platforms and that vast variety of legacy platforms, to make sure that these newer systems like Hadoop and the like don't become just another pocket or a silo of automation in the ecosystem. By the way, we're seeing this across the board. We're seeing this in public and private sectors, whether it's an agency responsible for overseas climate intelligence for the field, or if it's a truck manufacturing company who wants to capture millions of data points for its fleet of vehicles to proactively route its trucks to dealer service centers or whatever when they need attention. The evolution that we're seeing right now, it's really, really fascinating. I think it speaks to the importance of data and a big part of the reason why we're doing what we're doing today.
Right. Got to be able to collect it, got to be able to tag it. You know, we all wrestled with unstructured data for the longest time. And now, you know, as we're hearing, you got to be able to sort of normalize it across interagency, et cetera. And the ability to do that and not have that be the project, but the project be the outcome is just fantastic. I'd love to hear that. Tom, we'd like to talk about specific programs where perhaps big data is doing big things. Let's start with you over at the Navy. I know you've got many examples. Give us one big one, or just one, you know, one that you're like to highlight for the audience here in regards to an activity that's underway there at the Navy.
Sure thing. So we are in the process of building out our enterprise data environment, which is called Jupiter. So it is an offshoot or an extension of a broader OSD program that Michael's very familiar with called Advana. And I mentioned it a little bit earlier. So the key thing about Jupyter is that it takes all of our disparate data sources, our what we're characterizing as our systems of record or systems of ground truth, and brings them all together and integrates them into a platform that has a variety of different tools on it. And the entire suite, the entire package is actually running in the cloud. It's certified for use. So the key thing there is that analysts can get in there and use high-end visualization tools to take the data, integrate the data, and create dashboards for it. There are also machine learning and artificial intelligence tools in there where they can go in and actually write algorithms and not have to worry about the RMF process, getting ATOs, getting software put onto the system, downloading things, getting things integrated. So it provides this ecosphere for data integration, which is super exciting, at least to me in the department. It's something that we haven't had in the past. And so we're taking our big data producing systems like Navy ERP, MPT&E, which is our My Navy HR for military pay and personnel, and the Noble program, which handles our sustainment and logistics. And we are integrating those in with Jupyter and then slowly starting to tackle some of the, what I'll call medium-sized systems, and then working our way down into the smaller systems. And so we're very diligently trying to look at the data sources, curate the data as it comes in, create a data ingestion pipeline. Ultimately, our goal over the next probably 12 months or so, and we're actually getting really close to a big step in this, is get automated interfaces between these systems rather than kind of a batch processing system. And so just found out yesterday, actually, the Noble program has actually created their API. We have our API to receive that data. So in the next couple of weeks, hopefully we can get an automated exchange between those two systems so that when records come into the system of record and users are using the systems and interacting with them for like maintenance and repair, overhaul, or supply chain management, that will trigger an event inside the system itself to send the change record over to Jupyter so that there's no batch processing. There's no question, is this data up to date or not? And so it's just a matter of rerunning your analytics or just opening the dashboard and refreshing, you get the latest view of the data. So that is a dramatic departure from where we have been in the past, where data has really been siloed. We've had end user systems for users to interact and do things for a long time, but what we've always lacked is the ability to stitch those systems together, and more importantly, really just understand our ecosphere and have a detailed look across the department about where we are on a variety of different topics. So we are creating an investment management dashboard right now with the tool, which is really interesting as we're in the process of planning, ironically, for Palm 23, even though we haven't even started 21 yet.
Right.
But using Jupyter and actually using the data that we own to create dashboards to show us where we're making our investments in 2021 to help us inform where we want to go in 23. Again, this is just a complete radical change from the way that we've done this in the past. And so Secretary Harker, prior to his departure to OSD, actually gave us a very difficult task, which is to turn the entire POM process into a digital process.
Fantastic. I love the idea
more
of
paper.
taking all this data and making the entire order decisions. It's just outstanding, right? It's just certainly warms my heart. Well, we're going to take a short break, but we'll be right back. You're listening to the Federal Executive Forum on Federal News Network.